The IRS just announced something that could put an extra $1,500 to $3,000 in your pocket over the next few months, and it's specifically targeting people who receive SSI, SSDI, and Social Security benefits. This isn't clickbait, this is about actual money that's been allocated and is starting to move through the system right now. Here's what's happening. There are 3 separate programs that just got funding releases, and 2 of them are designed to essentially double certain payments for eligible recipients. I've been tracking federal benefit announcements for the past 5 years, and I'm seeing documentation from the Treasury Department and Social Security Administration that confirms these programs are active. What makes this particularly significant is that these aren't temporary stimulus payments or one-time fixes. These are structured programs with ongoing funding that will impact people's finances for months, and in some cases, the rest of 2025. But here's the catch, and this is what most people don't realize: you might be eligible for money you don't even know about, and some of these programs have deadlines that are coming up faster than you think. The window for certain back payments is closing in March, which means if you don't know about this now, you could miss out entirely. Let me break down exactly what's happening with each program, because they're all different and the eligibility requirements aren't what you'd expect. Program 1, the SSI Supplemental Payment Initiative. This one specifically for SSI recipients, and it's designed to address what they're calling cost of living gaps. If you're currently receiving SSI, you might be eligible for a supplemental payment that ranges from $200 to $800, depending on your current benefit amount and living situation. The way this works is pretty straightforward. The Social Security Administration identified that SSI payments haven't kept up with actual living costs in certain areas, so they allocated funding to bridge that gap. If you're receiving SSI and you live in a high-cost area, or if your current SSI payment is below a certain threshold, you automatically qualify for this supplemental amount. The calculations are based on regional cost of living data that gets updated quarterly. So if you're in a city where rent has increased significantly over the past 2 years, or where grocery costs have outpaced the national average, your area might qualify for the higher supplemental amounts. I've seen people in California, New York, and parts of Florida receiving the full $800 monthly supplement, while people in lower-cost areas are getting the $200 to $400 range. The key word here is automatically. You don't have to apply for this if you're eligible. The payment will be added to your regular SSI deposit. The first wave of these payments started going out last week, and they're processing them in batches based on your Social Security number. If your Social Security number ends in 03, you should have already seen your first payment. If it ends in 46, expect it in the next 2 weeks. If it ends in 79, you're looking at late February for your first payment. This second program is where things get interesting, because it's addressing something that's been a problem for years. If you've ever had delays in your SSDI approval, or if there were processing issues with your application, you might be owed back payments that were never properly calculated or distributed. The IRS and Social Security Administration just released funding to resolve these back payment issues, and some people are seeing lump sums that are essentially doubling their monthly payments for several months. I'm talking about people who are getting $2,000, $4,000, sometimes even $6,000 in back payments that they didn't know they were owed. What's particularly interesting about this program is that it's not just covering obvious delays. They're also addressing cases where people receive partial payments due to administrative errors, or where cost of living adjustments weren't properly applied to retroactive periods. So even if you thought your SSDI case was completely resolved, you might still be owed money. Here's how you know if you might be affected. If you applied for SSDI anytime between 2020 and 2023, and there were delays in your approval process, or if you had to appeal a decision, there's a good chance you're owed money from this program. Also, if you received SSDI approval, but there was a gap between when you became disabled and when your payments started, those gap periods are being recalculated with updated benefit amounts. The average back payment I'm seeing is around $2,800, but I've heard from people who receive significantly more. One person I spoke with got over $8,000 because their case had been delayed for 2 years, and they were owed both the original benefits and the cost of living increases that should have been applied during that time. This third program is the broadest one, and it's not just for SSI or SSDI recipients. If you're receiving any kind of Social Security benefit, retirement, survivor benefits, disability, you might be eligible for what they're calling an emergency distribution. This program was created to address the financial impact of inflation and rising costs on Social Security recipients. The payments are calculated based on your current benefit amount, but the formula is designed to provide more support to people with lower benefit amounts. So if you're receiving $800 a month in Social Security, your emergency distribution might be $400. If you're receiving $1,200 a month, your distribution might be $300. The idea is to provide proportionally more support to people who need it most. What's different about this program is that it also takes into account your total household income, not just your Social Security benefit amount. So if you're receiving Social Security, but you also have a small pension or part-time work income, that factors into the calculation. The goal is to identify people who are genuinely struggling with current economic conditions, not just to give money to everyone who receives Social Security. The payments from this program are also tax-free, which is important to understand. Unlike some other federal payments, these emergency distributions won't count as taxable income, so you won't have to worry about owing taxes on this money next year. Here's where the timing gets crucial. These aren't all happening at once, and they're not all permanent programs. The SSI supplemental payments are happening monthly through the end of 2025. So if you qualify, you'll see this extra money in your account every month for the rest of the year. The SSDI back payments are happening as lump sums, but they're processing them in batches. If you're eligible, you should see this money within the next 60 days. The Social Security emergency distributions are happening quarterly, so you'd see these payments 4 times throughout 2025. Now, here's where I need to be completely honest with you, because there's a lot of misinformation floating around about these programs. Not everyone who receives Social Security benefits will qualify for all 3 programs. The eligibility requirements are specific, and they're based on factors like your current benefit amount, when you started receiving benefits, your living situation, and whether you've had processing issues in the past. But here's what's important. If you qualify for any of these programs, the money is real, and it's significant. We're not talking about $20 or $50 payments. These are substantial amounts that can genuinely impact your monthly budget. Here's something that surprised me when I was researching this: these programs aren't actually new. The funding for all 3 of these initiatives was approved in late 2024, but the rollout got delayed because of administrative changes and processing backlogs. What changed recently is that the IRS took over the distribution process for some of these payments, which is why you're seeing the sudden influx of money and the faster processing times. The IRS has the infrastructure to handle large-scale payments quickly, so they're able to get this money out to people much faster than the Social Security Administration could on their own. This also means that some people might receive their payments from the IRS rather than through their normal Social Security deposit method, which has been causing some confusion. So here's what you need to know. There are 3 active programs right now that are providing additional money to SSI, SSDI, and Social Security recipients. The amounts range from a few $100s to several $1,000s, depending on your situation and which programs you qualify for. The SSI supplemental payments are happening monthly through 2025. The SSDI back payments are happening as lump sums over the next 60 days. The Social Security emergency distributions are happening quarterly throughout 2025. If you're eligible for any of these programs, you don't need to apply. The payments will be processed automatically based on your existing benefit information. You should see any payments you're eligible for either through your normal Social Security deposit method or through a separate IRS payment. The most important thing to remember is that this money is legitimate, it's substantial, and if you qualify, it's already on its way to you. Keep an eye on your accounts over the next few weeks, and don't be surprised if you see deposits that are larger than your normal Social Security payments. If this information was helpful to you, or if you're seeing these payments show up in your account, let me know in the comments. I'm tracking how these programs are rolling out, and your experiences help me understand how well the system is working for real people. And if you want to stay updated on changes to Social Security and other federal benefit programs, consider subscribing. I break down these complex government announcements so they actually make sense.